So I am hypermobile, and today I'm going to talk about some of the physical therapy exercises I do that help me with that. It's taken me a really long time to find physical therapy that actually helps because a lot of physical therapy and stretching and yoga and all of those things is about working when you're at the end of your movement and increasing mobility and when you're hypermobile, you don't need help with that stuff. You kind of need help with how do I stand when my joints don't do the things that they're supposed to do to support you? How do I move when my joints aren't doing the things that they're supposed to do to support me? So a lot of these also don't look like they're a lot of work because it's about working sort of in a static position, because I find if I move too quickly in a PT progression from sort of static isometric exercises where you're isolating a particular muscle group to things where I'm moving that muscle group, then I get all excited and I kind of want to show off what I'm doing or make sure I'm doing it right and make sure it feels like I'm working, and then I just end up subluxing things or spraining them or injuring myself. Okay, so what we're going to do, or I'm going to do today, is some exercises for lumbar hyperlordosis. That's this extra curvature in my lower spine, and it's mirrored here. A lot of these issues with hypermobility are mirrored because muscle groups come in pairs. So if this muscle group is the one that's hurting, this muscle group is the one you want to activate. But sometimes they're tensed up because of a lot of pain. So sometimes you need to do work with like body workers or dry needling or different therapies to sort of help relieve the pain enough so that you can actually do the PT. So the way this works, I'm just going to talk through what I do. First off, I get my feet in a kind of comfortable position. This is going to sound like a lot like mountain pose in yoga. Sorry about that. It kind of is. Because a big part of this is your feet. This is where everything is, if you have hypermobile feet, it all just transfers up the connective chain. So a big thing I notice sometimes when I'm doing this is that I'm not actually weighted evenly on my feet. Like I can feel my body more on like my heels or than the rest of me, which I think is why I have ankle issues actually, partly. So part of what I do first is I try to sort of rock back and forth a little bit and play around until it feels like my feet are actually supported and supporting me. Now I'm doing this with ankle braces on and orthotics because I need extra support. Then I have hypermobile knees and I tend to hyperextend them, which is not great. So I just kind of drop my knees a little bit, is what it feels like. I think this is how other people stand. You can see my posture is already changing. Then what I do is a thing that I've worked on first laying down, but so that I could do it standing. I'll try to demo that as well. But basically it involves activating my abdominal muscles. So I do kind of like a tiny Kegel, not like a full clench Kegel, but just like a tiny one. If you don't have those muscles, I'm not sure what you activate. Then the transverse abdominis runs along here. And the way you activate it is it feels like you're moving your hips closer together. So you do that. Then I kind of check in further down the chain. Are my feet still balanced? Good. My knees are still dropped. I haven't hyperextended them while I wasn't paying attention. And then I kind of let that drop and breathe while I stand here. And you'll notice the curvature is not as extreme. And then I kind of visualize like, I don't want to do the whole yoga visualization of something pulling at my spine because then I just get all excited and I end up like hyperextending my knees again and then everything gets out of whack. But just try to visualize sort of like my chest kind of coming up, but while also dropping down at the same time. Like dropping down here so I don't hyperextend my knees and sort of like lifting up my chest like I'm proud or whatever people say, but not so much that I hyperextend the other way. There's a lot of playing with this. And then I just kind of stand and breathe. And literally this is some of my PT, and it's actually way harder than it sounds if you're not bendy, or if you are bendy, I mean. So let me walk you through that again with less chatting about why things happen. So first, I want to say, where are my feet? I want to get them a comfortable distance apart, whatever that is for me. I want to feel, is my weight evenly distributed across my feet? I can rock back and forth a little bit, play with that. Once I feel that, I'm kind of evenly distributed, then I want to drop my pelvis a little bit and let my knees bend just a tiny bit so that they're not hyperextended. Then I'm going to activate my core muscles by feeling like my hips are moving a little bit together. We'll work on transverse abdominals later. Then I kind of want to work on my upper spine, just going up the kinetic chain. How is that feeling? Is it feeling centered over the rest of me? Did I overcompensate and push myself too far in a particular way? And just sort of being aware of all up and down that kinetic chain. How is my body doing? The added step that you can do, if you're comfortable, is to put one hand on your core and one hand just lightly touching your forehead, and kind of adjust where your shoulders are so that they're upright, not hyperextended, just sort of in what people who are not bending call a neutral position. And then just sort of stand like this. And if it's too hard to do it standing at first, we can work on doing it laying down. You don't have to start out with like a huge extended period of time. You're not some sort of superhero. You just want to do a little bit at a time until you work up to things like this. And then hopefully things like doing this and stepping this leg forward without it sunking out of its socket so much because you bent it the wrong way. Okay, so I just want to take you through one more time, standing, so that you can kind of see more of my body and what it's doing. Sorry I can't get a good full body shot in this room. And sorry my cat is crying on the other side of the door. So, again, you want to kind of feel your feet. Is your weight evenly distributed? Are they in a good spot? Then, once you've got that, you kind of drop your pelvis down like it's heavy. This lets you keep your knees from hyperextending. Then you activate your abdominal muscles and pull this in if you can as part of that. Activating some back muscles. So it's important not to, it's really easy to overdo that and then end up like this, which is not what you want. So feet, legs, hips, core, and then kind of extend up, but not so far up that you're hyperextending the other way. And try to keep your neck even. And then put like one arm up here. Just breathe like that. And switch arms. Moving carefully. The idea behind this is that eventually it becomes easier to maintain this posture so you can stand and walk and do without sort of being permanently hyperextended all the time. And also there's this thing called muscle memory, so you're sort of developing your muscle memory for what does it feel like to be in this position. Okay. So this is again my physical therapy setup, what it looks like when it's not just a pile of things in a corner. I have a pillow for lumbar support. I have my heating pad on top of that because my SI joint gets cranky. I have a cat scratching a scratching post. I have stuff on the ground. I have a pillow. I have a hand towel rolled up for cervical neck support. And then that other pillow over there is so that I don't hyperextend my hips when I'm doing this stuff. So getting into this setup is the challenging part, and maybe something people have trouble doing. Hi, cat. So I use the ottoman to lower myself down. I can also do this on a bed and just have pillows to substitute for the leg thing. So I want to activate my hi cat. Yeah, you're real good. And turn like this. And this is the tricky part. And then I want to make sure this is in the right spot. The reason I have this pillow here in my lumbar area is because, again, I've got the extra curvature, and if I don't put it there, this is made of pain. I'm going to put the hand towel on my cervical spine, and then I'm ready. So for a bunch of months, this is the only way I've done these exercises. It's fairly new to do them standing. But basically, you can see it's like I'm standing, just laying down, which means I have enough oxygen for my brain. This is really helpful if you have POTS or a CSF leak or something that makes standing hard. So what I'm doing here is I'm just focusing on this area. This lets me isolate it pretty nicely, and I don't have to worry about all the stuff with my feet. So again, just laying naturally, I would be kind of like this, or like this. And you can see there's some extra curve here. So what I'm really doing is I'm going to be working on pressing my back against this pillow. And before I do that, I'm just going to kind of, again, activate these core muscles. So what that looks like is, you can look up doing a Kegel elsewhere. But the transverse abdominis, again, runs right here. So if you put your hand kind of in the fold of your hips, and play around, you can tell when this muscle is engaged because it kind of pulls in a little bit. And the way I think of it is kind of that I'm moving my hip bones closer together. Not actually my hip bones, I hope, but it is this muscle. So I'm going to tighten it real hard. You can see it kind of engages all the way up here. But we don't want to do a super tight clench because you'll get tired out super easily and these exercises won't be as effective. So it's just a really light, like if it's an elevator, you're not going up to like the penthouse, you're going up to floor 1 or 2 of tightness. So now that I'm like this, what I'm doing is I'm just tilting my pelvis back a little bit so that I'm practicing a little bit of range of motion, rather than just doing a fully static exercise. But because I'm supported the way that I am, it's easier for me to keep in a healthy and good range of motion, as opposed to accidentally going to the end of my range of motion and then past it into hypermobile subluxation land. So I'm just not supposed to talk while I'm doing this. Taking a break. I'm just, again, gently tilting my hips back and forth. And there are ways you can sort of level up this exercise, rather than just tilting back and forward. Again, I don't need to go this way because I've got the hypercurvature already. But if you act like your body is like a wobbly table, and it doesn't have all the legs quite right, you can sort of do, let's see, activate the muscles first. You can sort of practice moving your pelvis like on this plane or on this plane. I'm not going to do too much because I've kind of tired out these muscles now. But this just, again, kind of helps with core stability, which is important for holding your posture and body in the neutral position so that you don't hyperextend things and hurt yourself. The other thing you can do, if you're leveling up from this, you've done this for a while, and you want to move towards a standing physical therapy thing, is very carefully like lift one leg, not super high, but just like a little bit off. Or you can do, if it's hard to keep the muscle balanced, you can do both at once. Again, I'm stabilizing here first and using these muscles to lift the legs. This is good practice. This one is hard. Don't start with that. Another thing I want to mention is that because I also have ankle instability, it can be really tempting when you're here and you're like, oh, I'm so relaxed, is to do a bunch of like ankle things like this and then pop your ankle out. So I have my braces on. I also try to keep my ankles in sort of a neutralish position. Okay, so again, walking through what this looks like. We're going to kind of let ourselves find our center. I think that's what the yoga people actually mean. But I'm going to pull the elevator up a couple floors and then just tilt back a tiny bit. And actually what I'm going to do now is, rather than doing tilting back and forth, I'm just going to keep these engaged a little bit and then relax. Do it for the length of time that feels okay for you. Don't push yourself on these, because it's really easy to injure yourself and then you can't do PT for a few days. So again, pulling the muscles in and engaging. When you're actually doing this, you want to be taking deep breaths, which I'm told helps your lymphatic system do its job. Now it's possible, if you're like me, your SI joint, when it gets cranky, your piriformis muscle, which is a muscle in your ass, gets tight and angry. So a thing that I do sometimes, this is partly why I have the heating pad, but also sometimes if I'm like, oh, I accidentally pushed myself, I take this, which is literally just a racquetball in a long sock, so I can grab it, and kind of tilt, and I put this under that muscle, and then I just kind of relax here, because honestly this position feels pretty good for a while. And rather than doing a foam roller or something for something like this, where you're moving a lot and again really easy to injure yourself, I just kind of tuck it racquetball there and let it put some pressure on those fascia and that muscle and get it to kind of open up and release a little bit. Or if you have two of these, which I sometimes do, I might balance them and put it on both. I'm not doing a whole lot of moving here because this is more just sort of like a wind down. So I hope this was helpful. Again, talk to a medical professional if you have one that you can talk to about hypermobility. If you don't, ask bendy people so you can maybe find someone good, because while our bodies are similar, sometimes we have different issues, and really this is for if your pelvis is tilted forward. I don't have exercises for if it's tilted like this or if it's tilted backward, because that's not what my body does. But because it's so hard to find a knowledgeable PT, I am just sharing this in the hopes that it helps someone, or at least gives them some ideas of what kind of exercises are possible. My physical therapist and I modded this really heavily because there are a lot of exercises that, you know, like the part of the mod is having this pillow in my lower back and the heating pad and having this racquetball. Some of these I came up with myself, some of them, and then just kind of checked with her. Here's some bonus footage of my little furry friend who was keeping me company through this video and making all of the noise. And here's my other kitty who was sitting under the footstool during this entire video.